when I was a 16-year-old kid dreaming about becoming a physician one day, what I thought I'd be doing was healing people. The reality was I wasn't healing people. I was putting Band-Aids on them. I was putting on expensive, multi-$1,000, Band-Aids on their metabolic issues. And that wasn't really healing. And this is what I didn't realize that. But that's the reality of modern medicine. It's just, let's get the latest technology to put the more expensive Band-Aid and just manage symptoms.
Hey guys, it's the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show, and we are always excited to come into your realm, teaching you how to live better, be better, and stay better, one bite at a time. And I have a very, very special guest with me on the show today, Dr. Shawn Baker, and I just can't wait to hear what this man has to say, because he has influenced our culture from a health perspective. And I saw a post he put online the other day that said, people are waking up. Dr. Shawn, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Aaron, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Man, I'm truly honored and thankful that you're on the show with us today. I mean, there's so many people that I know probably know about you, but I just wanted to introduce you personally to my audience and the sphere of influence that you and I get to influence together in our special way. And so what did you mean when you said people are waking up? Was it doctors only? Was it patients? People like, who were you? What spurred that thought, you think?
Well, I think that, really the events of the last couple of years, quite honestly. I mean, I think people have, for good or bad, lost faith in some trusted institutions, and I think deservedly so. I think we've kind of let the populace down. I mean, we look at where we are as a country when it comes to our chronic disease prevalence. When we look at things like life expectancy, we look at our health outcomes compared to other nations. In the United States, we're spending like multiples of times of amount of money on healthcare, and yet our results are pretty abysmal when we compare to every other developed Western nation in the world. I think that.
Do you think help people understand really what that means? Like, I've read somewhere like we're 3 away from the bottom on like mortality. Like we're really, 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 we think we're healthy, but we're not.
No, we're clearly struggling in that regard. I mean, we spend, I think, something like the most recent figures are about $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare. Most of it going to chronic disease management, and it's not even treatment or cure. It's just managing these diseases, and the outcomes are, chronic disease. As much money as we spent on diabetes and heart disease and cancer, those numbers don't go down. The same number of people keep getting those diseases. We're not decreasing the incidence of these diseases. They're going up.
So for me, like my dad passed away in my arms at 19 of a heart attack. So like this really woke me up. Well, I was teaching a bunch of doctors back in the beginning of November, and one of the studies that I found was just a headline that the American Heart Association is celebrating 100 years of practice. Like, if you will, they've been in business 100 years. But yet, the number one cause of disease in the country is still heart disease. So I'm thinking to myself, if I could suck at my job and be last place and still be in business for 100 years, like, what does that say about our healthcare system? And why haven't people seen it before 100 years?
Yeah, that is a shocking way to think about things. It's like you're number one for the worst outcome, and you're still number one 100 years later. I mean, what are we paying these people for?
Exactly.
It's kind of, as I think most people were, there are tremendous conflicts of interest now in the healthcare system. The regulatory agencies, the FDA, CDC, they're all getting money from pharmaceutical companies to sort of greenlight their drugs, and it's really a revolving door with the various members from the pharmaceutical industry taking positions in those regulatory agencies and then going back and forth. And so the problem and the unfortunate side effect of that is the average American is suffering because of that. And the healthcare industry is not about getting people healthy. I mean, it's about making profit, and health is a side effect that sometimes happens, but it's certainly not the main focus.
I can't remember the study exactly, but it was like when doctors went on strike in the north part of the country, the mortality rate got better. Like,
Went down,
less
right? Yeah.
people died. And it's no disrespect, right? Like, I have, my son broke his arm last year. I'm thankful for the surgeon that was able to put, 5 screws and a plate in his arm, because, he wouldn't be able to supinate. And, he's a 5'9.5", 15-year-old that can dunk. And so he wants to play ball. And so I get it that, there's a place, but it's very overutilized, over medicated, maybe even over surgically indoctrinated.
Yeah, for sure.
And this idea is to cut is to cure is a model that's taught in today's Western culture, but really and truly we're forgetting the fundamentals of wellness, and we're being duped. We're miseducated through bad science, bad research, and a bunch of publicity that the average American can't compete with to get the truth.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, as a surgeon, the phrase was "heal with steel." You got these surgical steel, scalpels, and that's how you heal people, right? Or better living through pharmacology. I mean, this is sort of the meme phrases that we're kind of brought up with as physicians, and we're not taught anything else. I mean, as an orthopedic surgeon, I had like zero anything about how nutrition could potentially impact any disease I treated, whether it's carpal tunnel syndrome or rotator cuff tendonitis or knee arthritis. It was all about drugs, therapy, surgery. I mean, that was it. That was the only thing I knew. And when people would come to me, I remember I would have patients. I remember this one gal in particular that came into me, and she was telling me how, gluten was making her knee hurt. I looked at her allergy list, and it was quite long. And I looked at her medical problem list. She had a bunch of medical, and I wrote her off as a wacko. She's just some nutty lady, But the reality is, I was wrong. I was the idiot. I mean, this is probably a reality. And now I've experienced by the thousands of people tell me, hey, when I stop eating sugar and processed grains, my joints feel better.
Right.
And I see that every single day now. So, the incentives that I had, as a surgeon, when I was telling my hospital administration, hey guys, I'm finding out that when I change people's diet, their joint pain goes away. And this is really cool. I think it's really cool. I'm canceling surgeries. They didn't like that.
Oh.
They literally, not only did they not encourage it, but they actively discouraged me from doing that. And I said, hey, let me spend, half a day a week, Friday afternoons talking to people lifestyle. No, we don't have an appetite for that. No, we don't want you to do that. This is because they realize that, again, it's just that whole thing. A customer cured is a patient cured is a customer lost, type of situation. That's exactly what we have. I mean, the
How did
memes
that
are
make you
true.
feel as a surgeon? Like, how did that make you feel as a human being? How about that? Even
Well, I
simpler than
mean,
just a
I'm
doctor.
competitive, and I'm competitive. I'm hard headed, and it pissed me off. And I just said, "F you guys, I'm gonna do it anyway." And it got me into some trouble. I ended up with some fights, and ended up leaving practice over in no small way this issue. But I mean, I think, whether I'm right or wrong, I think I'm right. And I'm
Well,
going to keep playing with that. And,
you,
I think this is the right thing to do ethically. When I was a 16-year-old kid dreaming about becoming a physician one day, what I thought I would be doing was healing people. The reality was I wasn't healing people. I was putting Band-Aids on them. I was putting on expensive, multi-$1,000,
Band-Aid.
Band-Aids on their metabolic issues. And that wasn't really healing. And this is what I didn't realize that. But that's the reality of modern medicine. It's just, let's get the latest technology to put the more expensive Band-Aid and just manage symptoms. I mean, the term disease management was not there. At least I wasn't aware of that term at the beginning of my medical career. Disease management came in a little bit later. And then I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean disease management? What does that mean? Oh, it means you just give people drugs to manage their symptoms for the rest of their life. That's what that means. And you're like, well, maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe we should be talking about cures. Maybe we should be talking about, let's not make these people sick anymore. So they're no longer actually sick, not that we're just, masking their symptoms. And unfortunately, the vast majority of medicine now, at least on the allopathic side, is dedicated to masking symptoms.
Well, I think that, for me, I've always been taught, we're not allowed to treat, cure, or diagnose anything because that'll get you in trouble. And but we can feed the body and trust that the body has been designed by God in order to heal and repair and regenerate, and it will oftentimes do what it's supposed to do, is what it was designed to do, if fueled correctly. But we look at medicine to food as pleasure, and we don't know that I mean, it still shocks me that people don't realize that the fastest way to the pearly gates is through the golden arches. That fast food will kill you, and so it mind boggles me. But I've had patients tell me my car just drives into the drive-through and I can't control it. And I'm like, what? Like, the addictive nature of food is a powerful thing. What have you seen, and what do you or is it food, or is it good marketing that is driving people to their early grave, early autoimmunity, early disease state, standard sad American diet?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that nutrition impacts health and chronic disease tremendously. I think most diseases, if not all diseases, are significantly improved and sometimes completely reversed by good nutrition. I think that clearly happens. And I think that um, if you are treating chronic disease and you are not addressing nutrition, and quite frankly, you're probably addressing some sort of food addiction. I mean, you have to be prepared to deal with that, because these foods have been designed, and I've had people from the food industry. I had a woman from the food industry that worked there for 30 years as a food chemist, specifically telling me my job was to make this food as addictive as I possibly could. And
That's
they know it. I mean,
crazy.
they know it. They've done it intentionally.
How do
And they
they
profited.
get away with that?
Well, I mean, because we don't have the guts to go after it, I suppose, because it makes a lot of money. People,
Yeah,
as you know, I mean, these regulatory agencies are getting, through the back door, getting a bunch of money from these very same companies that they regulate. And so we have this food that is intentionally made to be addictive. It tastes good. It's cheap. It's ubiquitous. Your grandmother feeds it to you. It's seen as a reward. You deserve a treat. So my treat is something I deserve to become diabetic. Is that what I deserve?
that's
I
right.
mean, you look at these things, um, and yes, it's marketed heavily, and it's subsidized, and it's cheap, and it's everywhere. So it's no wonder people can't get away from this stuff. It's really challenging. And
And I try
so
to tell
when
people,
you're treating this, yeah, go ahead.
if you eat make believe food, the best you'll ever have is make believe health. And
Yeah, I mean,
it seems to be such a truth, because if you follow a chocolate chip cookie recipe, you're going to get chocolate chip cookies. And if you eat, diets that have proven to gain weight or to enlarge even the chairs at the movie theater, where people can actually sit there now comfortably, because before they were too small. I mean, it's changed everything down to the airplane seats. Food has changed everything down to the way we sit and move around in our culture. It's crazy to me. And so from there's a rumor that you may be doing some work at the political level, like you even like trying to you make even a bigger worldwide impact on our food health. Like, what's going on there?
well, as you know, I mean, we just went through a political election. They haven't installed a new administration yet, but it's in the works. And there's people, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and some of the other folks that are potentially going to be in the office. They have to get confirmed first. But I mean, there's definitely an
It's gonna
appetite
happen.
to
It's gonna happen.
reform. Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope so. There's an appetite to reform the way we may practice health, the way the regulatory agencies work. I think it's much needed. I think there's too much corruption and corporate capture in those agencies. So I think it's going to open up the door for some new way of thinking, new way of doing business. It's not going to be business as usual, I hope. Now, again, I am not so um, sort of you know naive to think that there will not be a lot of resistance to this. You can damn sure bet these pharmaceutical companies and food companies are calling their senators and calling their congressmen and putting pressure on these guys not to not
Uh,
to not to take action. But we'll see. Hopefully, the will of the people. And like I said, again, if we want to make America healthy again, it starts with the Americans. The Americans have to be the biggest driving force in this, and we just have to stop supporting these uh, kind of predatory companies. You just got to stop giving them money. I mean, if you don't like the fact that they screw you over, stop giving them money.
yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the biggest thing we can all
There's an
do.
old
But I
saying
mean,
that says, "He who controls the food controls the world." So, I mean,
well,
there
yeah,
is a fight for the food dollar that you're purchasing, and so you're absolutely right. And I think, again, I hope my hope and your hope is to wake up America to say, guys, together we are still powerful and together we still have a voice and what we
Yeah, I
eat
mean,
matters.
we can, I wholeheartedly believe the market will drive, market demand will cause these companies to do this. It's going to be less government mandate. I mean, there's some things they can do, but they're going to fight those things tooth and nail with every lawyer you can think of and drag it through the courts for years and years. But if you stop buying their stuff and say, look, I'm going to buy this instead of this, they're going to make more of the stuff you want. And I think that's the way to do this. This is the ultimate and most effective and most powerful way we can do this. But I mean, obviously part of it has to do with education, people understanding what's going on. Most people, I mean, you think about how do most people make food purchasing decisions? What's it
Off
cost? What's it taste like? Cost and taste. I mean, that's
cost,
what I
taste, and
drive.
habits. Cost, taste, and habits, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, and the habits, the habits, and obviously there's some marketing that drives that. But I mean, so you got to get away from that and realize that um, food has a much bigger importance than just a quick, dopamine hit or a flavor hit. It critically changes and alters your life in every aspect of it.
Well,
And I
like
can
you
tell
said,
you,
or like you said earlier, with respect to only having 15 minutes with a patient, and just what you just said about it starts with the American making a choice. How do we as America get educated, and how do we trust the source? Because again, I mean, you and I are making a stance polar wise by eating a crazy diet. How do we not look crazy and become, forerunners, leaders, and influencers to make a difference in people's lives for their sake?
well, I mean, first of all, the nice thing about health is that it's hard to gaslight people on that. I mean, you can talk about whatever climate change, some political event, and there's 20 different versions, and each one has a very compelling argument. But when it comes to my own health, I mean, I can look in the mirror, see if I've lost weight. I mean, I can wake up in the morning, I can tell if I have energy or not. I can tell if my joints hurt or not. So it's hard for me to sort of not understand when I'm healthy or not. I mean, I think that's an inherent thing. We all know when we feel like garbage, and we all know when we feel good. So at least we have that on our side for that particular issue. And so I tell people, you don't have to trust me. You can try what I say, and if it works, it'll work. It'll either work or it won't. If it works for you, great. Then you've got something you can objectively kind of affirm to yourself. Um, I think that we fortunately, the diet that I promote now, this crazy carnivore diet, I'm not the first guy to talk about this. In
Right.
fact, they were talking about this stuff in the 1700s. I mean, James Rollo, a surgeon in Scotland, was treating diabetes with this diet 300 years ago, right? The reason that more people know about it now is just because of the fact that we live in a place where we have social media and internet and instant communication. And now we can see that literally millions of people at this point have done this. And for the vast majority of them, they're seeing very positive benefits. They lose weight. They get off their high blood pressure meds, their diabetes meds, their autoimmune diseases go into remission, on and on and on. Their mental health gets better. So when you start seeing not one, two, five, 10 people, but tens upon tens of thousands of people all saying, hey, this stuff worked, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. It's hard to deny that. So I think,
Especially because
we're going to
people
get to a
do
point.
wake up in the morning and know they feel like crap. Like, I think the answer is like, self-assessment. I mean, people got to get reconnected with, hey, how do I feel? Do I have headaches? Do I have high blood pressure? Am I on polypharma, multiple medications? And, so like if the new administration gets integrated in, what do you think would, if you were a part of the board there and you could influence that, what might be some changes that you
Yeah.
would make with respect to our making America healthy again?
Well, I think you have to start incentivizing physicians correctly. I mean, I think you've got to, like for instance, when I, as an orthopedic surgeon who was seeing 50 patients a day, uh, sort of to wake up, hey, this is what we need to do. I had no way of implementing it. The best I could do is say, hey, go read this book, watch this video. That's the only level of support I could provide for them. And so, like I said, I formed my own company now called Rivero, where we can actually spend time with patients, either through direct interaction with the physician, versus, our coaching teams. We provide all the support, education, feedback, daily feedback, collecting data from people every single day and then acting upon that. That didn't exist prior to this for this type of issue. I think there's so much we have to learn about how nutrition impacts diseases and the various diseases and how they impact different people of different demographic backgrounds, that needs to be studied. We need to put more effort into researching that. Before, all the studies that drive healthcare are paid for by the pharmaceutical industry for the most part. When you want to run a 5-year RCT, with 500 people, and you got to spend $30 million to do that study, no one's got the money to do that.
Right.
These studies to do that. I think the physician needs to be empowered. We need to get paid for getting people healthy, not just give them more pills. I mean, I think we should reevaluate what it means to have a good outcome, because you see a lot of these studies where you have what the patient think versus what the doctor thinks. And the doctor may say, well, all your stuff looks good on the numbers, your cholesterol's fine, your glucose is fine, your this and that's fine. And yet the patient still feels like garbage. So the doctor's giving it an A, but the patient's giving it a D plus. And you've got to sort of, kind of align those things where we're saying we want very much patient-focused outcomes that are actually meaningful, not just hit some biomarker numbers, which all they do is to sell, drive
medication for sure.
Yeah, we need healthy patients, and I think we should. Our level of health in this country is so low. The bar just to be average is almost underground. I mean, the average American is pre-diabetic. Think about that. The average American is pre-diabetic right now. 70% of us are either obese or overweight.
And
we can't have that.
The average
the
American's
answer's
eating
not to,
15, the 11 to 15 meals of the same variety every day. Essentially, we're all buying the same thing, eating the same way because of good marketing. And you're right. If we could put a blockade there and get people to detour a different direction, we could change the course of biochemistry at large. And
we are the arguably the wealthiest, most resource-rich nation on planet Earth. We should not be a nation of overweight, depressed, disempowered, sick, frail people. We should be a nation of badasses. We should be a bunch of,
come on,
we should be a bunch of vigorous, athletic, fearsome
warriors, the wellness warriors. That's right, man.
There's no reason we can't be that. And I think if we have the balls on a political level, and and again, I don't want to put it all on someone else. You got to take ownership of this yourself in your own family. I mean, you got to sit up and say, particularly if you're the husband, the father, I mean, it should be on you as a male to say, look, I don't want a bunch of sick kids. I don't want a bunch of fat kids. I want these kids to be
healthy, strong, vibrant,
healthy, strong. And we got to get back to that. I mean, that's part of it. It's
well,
it comes from all sides.
You bring a really, that's a great story right there, is leadership, and too often the male figure of the home he's worn out. His testosterone's in the toilet. He feels, he's on multiple medications. I mean, I know my dad was. He was on one or two statins, one or two blood pressure medications, and it cost him his life at 53. And so I wonder, like the stress impacts of today's grind, the poor, food quality, the soil issues. I mean, we are at a little bit of a disadvantage, to make the right, food choices. But maybe the simplicity is going back to what you said. And if it swam, if it flew, if it crawled around on the ground, that's what we should be consuming, right?
That's one way to think about it. Yeah, if it's got parents or a face, you can eat it. I mean that gets you into the carnivore realm. But I mean, again, as we mentioned previously, I don't think that's necessarily the solution for all people. But I mean, we've got to find a way to stop poisoning ourselves. And I think some of the food is literally poisoning us. And yes, the dose makes the poison in many cases, but we're eating far too much of it. I mean, it's clear.
Well, like
what's
one of the biggest poisons you think we're consuming? Is it glyphosates? Is it bad oils? Artificial sugars?
I honestly, I think it's a damn donut. I mean, I think it's everything that goes into that. It's refined grains, it's bad oils, it's sugary crap. I mean, that makes up, if you go in the grocery store and look at almost all the packaged box food, you look at the ingredients, it's going to have some sort of refined grain, it's going to have some sort of crappy oil, and more often than not, it's going to have some kind of sugar product in there. And then, and then it's got, 57 other ingredients there. God knows what they do, some of them. So I mean, I think we just have to get away from that stuff. And you could say it's a glyphosate, you can say it's a red dye 40 number 3 or whatever it might be, but I think it's the combination of that stuff, and we just have to get away from that. And yes, it's more inconvenient, and yes, it's more work. Yes, it's harder to fry up a couple eggs for breakfast instead of pouring a bowl of cereal, but it's worth it. I mean, that those extra 5 minutes are certainly worth it, and I think we just have to realize we've convenienced ourselves into complete misery. It's now we're conveniently miserable, right? I mean, this is what the convenience snack food lifestyle has done. So we've got to just sort of say, I mean, because where we are heading is going to be a place where everybody's going to be walking around with Oculuses on. They're not even walking around; they're going to be sitting around,
Yeah.
collecting some universal basic income, stuck into a damn,
Closed room
virtual
with no
reality world.
windows.
Yeah, and ordering DoorDash garbage food, and that's going to be your existence. That's going to be your kids, your grandchildren's existence. Uh, that's one way where we can go. And for some people might be happy there. They're so miserable. Their reality is so miserable. They'll take that existence. But I just don't think we should settle for that.
So, I look at it like what we call crap foods, and you got too many carbs, refined sugars, artificial sugars, and processed food. Snacks are essentially, in this category of processed food. And,
Right.
if a person's not quite carnivore ready, if they're not ready to, make all the maybe big hard decisions in their life, how can they start? Like, what's one thing that's not go carnivore that they could do to make today better again?
Well, I think and again, I'll say I don't believe everybody needs to go carnivore for sure. I mean, I think just eating more meat. I mean, you think about it. I mean, a study just came out the other day. Again, shows the less meat you eat, the more ultra processed food you tend to consume. And it's
Yeah.
a very simple trade off. What does meat provide? It provides all of this high satiety, high energy dense, high nutrient rich food. When you take that off the diet and you start to eat more leaves and plants, you're going to be hungrier, and you're going to want to supplement with that stuff. That just clearly is what happened. Now, some people have discipline and they can avoid it, but for the most part, people do that. And I think that, including just more good quality nutrition. I mean, we talk about snacking. When I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s, and I remember I come home from school at whatever it was, 3 o'clock, 3:30, and I'd be hungry. And I say, "Hey, Mom, I'm hungry. Can I get a snack?" And Mom would say, "Dinner's at 6. Go out and play." And that's what I would do. But nowadays, it's like, your kid wants a snack. What do? You give them a granola bar. You give them a Nutri-Grain bar. You give them a juice box. You give them a bunch of
Sugar.
crap.
Yeah. It's the
And
crap.
yeah, and so we end up with these kids that are constantly eating, and now we have 38% of our kids are pre-diabetic or some ridiculous stat like that. I mean, it's just insane.
So, okay, what about do you guys in the Rivera company, do y'all work on parasites? Do y'all work on viruses? I mean, do y'all support with supplementation? What's your thoughts around some of those concepts?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing we do is fix people's nutrition. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, our scope is fairly broad, but we're not treating every single condition right now just based on what we can, because an online digital health company, and you can't fix broken bones, you can't treat colds and things like that through that system very, very effectively. So we are limited to metabolic diseases, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, metabolic syndrome. We treat autoimmune diseases, we treat inflammatory diseases, and we have various protocols and labs that we assess and things that we want to do over time. And we've had some, I've very good success with this up to this point. We don't necessarily get into parasite cleanses, and we've got a few things like vitamin D levels and a few other things we'll check. And if they need maybe some sort of augmentation, we might do that. But I mean, I'm very much of the opinion, and it's not just me. I mean, we've got a whole clinical team and very smart doctors that look into this stuff. But I mean, by and large, most of it has to do with just removing the garbage food and feeding people appropriately. And that makes a big difference. And like I said, probably only a small percent of our patients actually end up having to go full carnivore. I mean, we work with people, and we've got lots of data. We've collected data on thousands of people on how diet impacts various different types of diseases. And we use that data to sort of personalize nutrition for each individual patient that comes in there, and then we adjust as necessary. You know, if it's not working, we tend to eliminate or add as appropriate.
Well, I tell you what, from my perspective, that is all good news, because at the end of the day, when people have to count calories, when they're constantly feeling restricted, and you're telling them to, hey, eat more protein, chicken, fish, turkey, egg, shrimp, get it in, and in more, like an extra ounce or two, and slowly but surely they stop feeling hungry and stop reaching for the donuts and the make-believe food, then all of a sudden health turns around. I think that's great news. That's very exciting.
Yeah, I think one of the things you'll see is, as you mentioned, a lot of people by habit. What's for dessert? I'm used to having a dessert, so they just do it. And you start thinking, if you start listening to your body, you give yourself a big old steak for dinner, and you're like, I don't really want the dessert. I might eat it anyway because it's out of habit, but I mean, do you actually really need that? And you start making those sort of decisions, because we know, I mean, we don't need a CGM monitor to tell us that eating a cake and ice cream is bad for us. I mean, nobody needs that. I mean, we like, something, look how much it went up there.
Well, yeah, you're definitely rationalizing bad behavior at that point, if that's why you have the glucose monitor on.
Right. So, I mean, it's something that I think that I think our body is designed to work pretty well. I think it does, given the appropriate inputs, and you just got to let yourself do that. We've gone so far from that. I mean, if we were just to turn the grocery store back 100 years, I think most people would be pretty damn healthy. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
for sure. I mean, for years we've always promoted, shop the perimeter, right? I mean, there's more real options on the outside than there is on the inside. And if you have to go to a health food store to get real groceries, I mean, it makes you question what is in the grocery store. And so we have to, support our local markets.
Well, and this is here's an interesting thought. I mean, let's say we have this Make America Healthy Again movement, and we're going to maybe reform the USDA, and we're going to have a new dietary guidelines, perhaps, and maybe it's going to say eat more meat and don't eat sugar and stop eating processed food. Should the grocery store reflect that? Because I can, even if I wanted to eat the current USDA guidelines, the grocery store doesn't reflect that. The grocery store reflects 90% crap and a few decent foods.
It's true. We still live in a commerce world.
Should we incentivize grocery stores to actually have that available? Because when what's available and what's cheap is garbage, what are people going to buy? And it's not to say I'm not a fan of banning things. And, I mean, we still have cigarettes. You can still buy cigarettes. I mean, it's stupid. You shouldn't smoke.
It's your life, your health, your choice. You're right. And education's key. So, I mean, you're 100% on point. And it's just a matter of waking people up and helping them see that they are responsible. And, if you are suffering with symptom patterns that you weren't genetically born with, stop and smell the roses. Like, go, what am I doing? What recipe am I following? And who sold me on that lie? And what can I do today to make a difference? And it may be just stop sugar. Like anything that's liquid sugar, take it out of your diet. That could be a possible step one, if they're that small gradient. Or like you said, the donut.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, well, all right. So I want to say first, thank you for being on the show today. The Dr. Chapa Wellness Show is a platform trying to find truth tellers, truth seekers in the realm of health and wellness. And I believe that we have absolutely been, just blessed to have you a part of it. And how can people find you? How can they follow you, be a part of your world? And what maybe closing thoughts might you have for our listeners and those that they share this podcast with?
Yeah, well, I mean, to find me, I'm on social media, Twitter, S. Baker MD, Instagram, Shawn Baker 1967, YouTube, Shawn Baker MD, Facebook, TikTok, same thing. We've got Rivera.com. Also, if you're looking for a physician that gets it, that wants to, if you need help treating disease, we're opening in every state in the U.S. So
awesome.
That's exciting to do. I think that, when it comes to, making changes, particularly if you're in a family, I mean, one thing I like to sort of this concept of generational health, and we talk about generational wealth, but I think we should be cultivating generational health. And your children, they don't so much pay attention to what you say, but they mimic what you do. And I think this is something, we talk about, oh, I'd take a bullet for my kid, or I would give a kidney for my kid, or what there's all these sacrifices you do. Would you be willing to be healthy for your child?
Come on.
Uh, and that's something that takes more effort. I mean, the reality of me, a train going to run over my kid is about 1 in a 10 million chance.
For sure.
But the reality of me not being unhealthy or not being healthy is like
1 in 3.
50-50. So I got to actually do
Well, I think it's
something. I
even
can't
more than
just
that.
talk about it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably 1 in 90%. So, I mean, you just can't get lip service. If you love your children, don't make them diabetic. If you love your children, don't give them mental health illness by feeding them crap. I mean, this is something that we have to realize that, this is one of the most powerful things, I mean, I know it's easy. The kids seem happy when you give them garbage. That's not doing them any favors. You got to get away from that.
Well, you
We
said
need,
it earlier. We got to teach these men to man up and to own their homes, and we might not be fighting with guns and bullets, although I know we might. But at the end of the day, we are standing with our fork and our knife, and we need to remember that we're only as warrior-like as our physical capacity. And if we want to become sugar-filled lumps of dough, we're doing a good job of that eating sugar-filled lumps of dough. We've got to stop and do something different. So, parents, fathers, lead and be okay recognizing that it is your responsibility to take the bull by the horns for your family's sake. I mean, you've got me. I mean, I'm so fired up, man. I just want to just yes, come on. And people need this data. So generational health, guys. On the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show, not only are we here to teach you how to live better, be better one bite at a time, but I'm going to steal that, Doc. We want to help you gain generational health because your kids deserve it. You deserve it. Your grandbabies, your great-grandbabies, the impact this country could have with healthier human beings running around it's absolutely starts at your kitchen table. So, guys, thank you, Dr. Baker. I appreciate your service, your time, your frontline trench working work that you are doing with your team. And man, my prayers are with you on your journey onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. So, sir, thank you for being a part of our show today. And we will definitely be in touch. And we friends in the force, always and forever, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
See ya.